All right, hi, how you doing? So this is my 3-month completely unbiased review of the Sony a7IV, which I received technically 3 months and a week ago, but it's not like we're counting here because that would be weird. Now I have used this on all different types of shoots, including some product shoots, some portrait shoots, some cinematic films, as well as some travel photography, and I even took it out on a hike where the temperature got well below 0 Celsius, that is, to the point where the drone back there couldn't even take off because it was too cold. But that is a story for another time. So I'm going to be taking you through the great, the good, the not so good, the bad, and the terrible of everything that I have encountered in that time frame of using this camera. So sit back, relax, and get through this together because there's a lot to get through. So let's begin. So if we haven't met before, then hi, my name is Nick. We do adventure films here as well as photography tips and tips, and obviously gear reviews. So if that is something that you're into, then if you enjoyed this video at the end, then make sure that you subscribe. If you didn't enjoy it, then just, flick straight through and on to the next one, as they say. So I will mention that here in Australia, we received the a7IV a month before everyone else. Why? No idea, but it gave me an extra month to really figure out some things and little quirks that I liked / didn't really like, and that's what I'm going to be sharing with you today. So where do you want to start? Do you want to start at the good side or the bad side? We'll start at the good side. Alright, so I'm going to start with my absolute favorite thing, and that is the little dial just here that does the S&Q video and photo switch. Now this is a lifesaver. If you are a run and gun type of person, as I am, this is perfect because you can switch your different settings, keep them in those modes so that you can go when you want to bang off a few shots. All the settings for your photography are there, they stay there, they don't change, but then you can switch it over to video and then you'll be able to keep all the video settings there and you don't have to constantly fiddle around, figure out what's happening, what's not happening. So that, I would say, is my absolute favorite thing for this camera, and I wanted to put that at number 1. Now, secondly is the shutter curtain. I know it's just a tiny little detail, but being able to reliably take off the lens and keep that sensor completely unaffected is just a lifesaver. No longer do I have to worry about, turn the camera upside down and awkwardly take the lens off and fiddle the lens back on. Like, that is gone. So these little tiny things that Sony listened to when they built this camera is just fantastic, absolutely fantastic. This next little thing is a little bit contentious, but I love the crop mode. I'm not gonna lie, I love the crop mode because it just gives every single lens that you've got that much more versatility. So 33 megapixel sensor, as we all know, that crop mode is still 14 megapixel, which is more than useful. So sure, you're not gonna blow it up and make a massive print out of it, but if you just want that little bit extra compression, that little bit extra reach, it is fantastic, and you can still have more than usable shots. So I keep that over on my C1, and as I said, I know it's contentious, but to me, the crop is so much more usable with this new sensor compared to the previous generations. Now on top of this, it makes the video of whatever you're filming, again, that much more usable because you can be filming in 4K 24 or 4K 30, tap the crop mode and it will just punch right in. You get zero quality loss because you're filming in 4K, which in turn just allows for more versatility, more control over what you are trying to film. Now, in terms of video that I just mentioned, this has 4K 30 with zero crop. Now, if you are like me, I'm not sure if you are, but if you are, then 4K 30 no crop is a godsend. Compared to previous generations, there was always that 1.2 little crop, which just got a bit annoying. So having the completely uncropped 4K 30 is fantastic, just for slowing down, making those things a little bit more cinematic, a little bit more dreamlike. That is a wonderful new addition that has to be mentioned because I'm really focusing on the little things that just don't get picked up in the major, let's say, reviews or observations for this camera. So I hope you're taking note on the little things. So another thing I really love is the active shot stabilization in this camera. It just makes the IBIS that much more powerful, that much more usable. So for example, I was up in a plane shooting some film, and just being able to hold the camera there in a tight situation and get smooth still footage was absolutely fantastic. And you don't have to use any warp stabilizer outside of that, and it's just another little worthwhile addition when thinking about this camera for the long term. Being able to shoot handheld, smooth, reliable footage is, if you are a videographer or anyone who shoots videos, aspiring videographer, this is another fantastic addition. So for you high ISO fans, then I will say this camera handles low light that much better than the previous generation, at least from my experience. You are able to go all the way up to 12,800 before the footage starts falling apart. And if you're someone who likes to shoot astro, or you shoot a lot of low light situations, then being able to use that much higher, much more extended ISO range really is extremely useful. Now I think this is come down to a big part of the new processor in this camera compared to the previous generations, just being able to handle that higher noise, higher ISO ranges, and just keeping everything sort of, on top of each other and just not emotionally unstable like the other cameras are, which from my experience, once you get past ISO 6400, it was like just a little bit dead. But this, I can safe to say, does handle it comfortably. Now, lastly, on the great side of everything is the higher resolution EVF, which has got, I think, 3.64 million dots compared to that from the previous generation a7IV. Now, with that, you are able to pick up on so many more things that much quicker. So if you use the EVF a lot, which I personally do for, fine-tuned adjustments, having that higher resolution really allows for you to nitpick that much faster, that much smoother. And on top of that, when you are previewing your shots after you've taken them, this EVF really allows you to see, obviously because of the higher resolution, so much clearer whether things are in focus or you've missed critical focus or have you not, which if you're on professional shoots a lot, that is a absolutely fantastic little addition. So now we're moving into the good / not so good area, and I'm going to be bringing up the Flippy Screen. So this again is going to be really contentious depending on where you are and where you stand on having a Flippy Screen. Versus having something that you want turned around, it's fantastic, that's great. But coming from the previous model's rotating screen that just popped down like that, it just felt like everything was tight and all in one little small space, so you didn't have to really think too much. But having it out here just makes it feel like, okay, I really now have to think extra as to where my hands are, like where the camera is, because it just feels a little bit fragile. Like you don't want to hit it too hard because then your screen's gone, or the rotator pin that holds this rotation part in is going to be damaged. So it's a love-hate relationship, let's say that, because it's fantastic for getting those low down, like if you put your thing down like that and you want to get nice low down shots, love it. Like that's when it's like, yeah, I really like this. And being able to rotate the screen and have it backwards for storage is fantastic because you don't have to worry about scratching the screen. So it's a bit of a trade-off. But just keep in mind that if you are someone who really liked the old rotating screen of the a7IV, then it does take a while to get used to the Flippy Screen. So, as I said, love-hate relationship. Tell me what you think, like what's your thoughts on the Flippy Screen being on this camera? I would really like to know. Now we're moving off into the bad territory, let's say. But I will say this isn't a deal breaker for me, but if it is for you, then I just wanted to put this here, and it is the 4K 60 crop. Now, it does say it's only a 1.5 times crop, but if you are someone who needs a really wide field of view, this is not going to be the camera for you, because it really is very close, and if you need close, tied up shots, then you are going to need a really wide camera just to be able to compensate for that crop. Now, in terms of 4K 60 quality, it's really great, it's fantastic. You don't really notice any difference compared to 4K 24, 4K 30, but the crop does make you think extra hard about what type of lens you need for that situation and how and where you're going to be filming. And if you need to, step back 3 or 4 paces, because it's not little, it is pretty significant. I can see why Sony did it, because if they didn't, then it would have made a7S III like pretty redundant in 80% of the areas, but just keep that in mind. So next is the, we'll say terrible because I mentioned terrible at the start of this video, but it is the overheating. It annoys me because I'm filming on the a6400 here, for example, and never once in any of the places I've thrown this camera into, which have been quite a lot, I've ever had an overheating warning pop up on this camera. But this, it's like a Ferrari. It goes well, but it's temperamental as anything. So keep that in mind. If you're filming in 4K 60, you have to have the screen out, because otherwise it's just gonna heat up and then switch off no matter where or what point you are when you're filming. And even just if you're in a room, like I'm filming here in the office, and just overheat it in 4K 24. So it's one of those things that maybe it can be fixed in a software update, I'm not sure. And you can set the heat threshold too high, but I feel like, at least for me, I don't want to be pushing the camera more than it needs to be pushed. So I just have it left at normal. So yeah, keep that in mind. You can't film long hours on this camera unless it's in a very well ventilated area with the screen open. Just a little note, Something I didn't expect this camera to do, but nevertheless, it does it. Now, we're gonna end on a high note because I have mentioned all the bad stuff, and you don't want to end on the bad stuff, because I don't want you thinking that you've either bought a potato or you're looking at buying a potato, because it's not. It really is a fantastic camera. So we're just gonna rattle off last little things that I really love about this camera. Again, they're all the little things that really count. And the first one is the buttons. They're just so firm. Like, listen to, they just sound good, they feel good, and they've just got a really nice, you know, solid click to it. So you really know you've clicked it, and all the buttons feel different. So it's just a really nice design factor to be like, I don't have to think about what button I'm pressing because I know what they all feel like. That is something that you get used to very quickly on this camera, and it really is a wonderful addition. Next is the grip. It is a redesigned grip of the a7S III, and if you're coming from the a7 Mark III, then you will notice it. And it's so chunky, but it's so easy to hold that if you drop it, it's basically your fault. Like, it's not the camera's fault, because the grip is really that good. Next is the focus mapping. Now, I didn't think I'd actually ever use it, but it really is that useful. So basically, anything that is in focus on the camera will not be full of color. So it just really allows you to fine tune those extra things, especially if you film manual focus. It's a godsend, and you're really, really gonna love it. Now, following that, on top of that, is the animal and bird eye AF. It is very sticky, extremely reliable. Even if the animal is moving quickly, this locks on and it stays locked on. So you can really rely on it. You do have to switch it manually, which one you choose. So you have to sort of go into the situation knowing what you're going to be photographing or videoing. But if you've done that right, then it will stick on and hold on. So worth noting, because it's really, really good. Something that, it's all the little things, you know. The next is all the little custom buttons. Every single button on this camera is fully customizable, even down to the EV comp dial. You can set that to something completely different, which I had set it for something different, but then changed it back. But it's the point that you can really make this camera 100% yours, to the point where you would give your camera to someone else who owns the same camera, and you'd have to teach them how to use it. So I really appreciate the fact that everything on here, like so many buttons and options here, are customizable, because I'm someone who likes to fiddle with these things. So being able to modify something to make it yours is a really nice little option. So we're coming to the end, and I'm just going to mention the menu system on this camera is really great. It's really great. It's so easy to navigate through. As I said before, the touch screen is super responsive, so you can just tap, tap, tap through, figure out what you need, what you want. And it's worth noting, because the old menu on the older camera and this camera as well, coincidentally, just felt like it was stuck on top. It didn't feel like it actually fit there, but this one feels like it's just meant to be there, if that kind of makes sense. And lastly, I'm going to say it again just because I really want to end this on a high note. Being able to split up your settings between photo and video is unreal. It's absolutely unreal. You can do it on the switch, and you can also do it in the menu. So your menu settings for your photos and your menu settings for your videos are completely different. So again, it's worth mentioning, it really is a wonderful, wonderful addition to having the Mark IV. So that is the end. We have got there. Finally, this is a 30-minute recording. I don't know how much longer this is going to take, but I will say, if you got to the end, I really appreciate it. I hope you got a lot out of this camera. Now, I did say it's not a potato. It is a little bit annoying at times, but if you can get past that, then you really have invested in something that is going to last and hang around with you for a long time. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, then I would really appreciate a like and subscribe down here. Let me know if there's anything that you want to know about specifically with this camera down in the comments, and I will get back to you. But until then, stay safe, look after yourself, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.